Right, let's move back to the domestic sphere here in Australia. And I look at an issue I mentioned first last week, but it hasn't gone away. This growing push on the left for the radical decriminalisation of illicit drugs in Australia. We saw it all start in earnest last week when the leader of the Reason Party in Victoria, Fiona Patten, revealed her intention to push for the decriminalisation of illicit drugs. We're talking heroin, ice, the whole box and dice in the Victorian Parliament. The next day, federal Labor MP for Canberra, Alicia Payne, announced that she also strongly supported drug decriminalisation. Now, there's also a push, as you know, inside the Labor Greens-run ACT Legislative Assembly to decriminalise carrying small amounts of hard drugs. It would be very wrong to see these instances over the past couple of weeks as isolated frolics. They're not. They're part of a concerted campaign by the left to end Australia's long-standing prohibition against hard drugs. Federal Minister Zed Seselja said this push is real, it's radical and it's dangerous. He joins me now from Canberra. Zed, thank you for your time. Ice, heroin, speed, ecstasy, the whole gamut. Huge community harm is caused by these drugs. What does Federal MP for Canberra, the Labor Federal MP Alicia Payne, want to see happen?
Well, unfortunately, Federal Labor MP Alicia Payne supports the policy that is being pushed and in the ACT Assembly is on the verge of being put into law in the ACT, which is the decriminalisation of ice, of heroin, of cocaine, of MDMA, of all of these hard drugs, which I think common sense will tell you, but also many, many experts, including the head of the AFP, Reece Kershaw, will tell you will lead to more violence. It will lead to a more dangerous environment for individuals in family situations. We know that domestic violence increases. We know that there is more risk on our roads. There is more risk for first responders. There are serious mental health issues that go with this. These are really seriously dangerous policies. They're being pushed, as you say, in some parts of the country. You talk about the push in Victoria, certainly in the ACT, it is a strong push. It's already been recommended by a Labor Greens dominated committee, so it's on the verge of being passed here in the ACT. And unfortunately, Peter, it seems to have some supporters at the federal level, and not just Alicia Payne, but the federal Greens have it as part of their policy platform. So you can see how parts of the left, a growing part of the left, it would seem, are pushing for these radical drug law changes.
Just point that out to Labor leader Anthony Albanese. He's from the factional left. He took a while to come out and reject the idea. He didn't necessarily reject it outright. He sort of put it to one side and said it's not the agenda. We know in Victoria, though, Daniel Andrews ruled out a heroin injecting room before the 2014 election. As soon as he got elected, he put one in. And now there's another one for the CBD. How can you, or can we, the question is, can we trust Labor when they say before the election that this is not on the table?
Well, you're right to point that out. In the Victorian experience, in the ACT, it certainly wasn't on the table. It was not taken to an election, but it's now being almost certainly likely to be pushed through the ACT Assembly. So you do have to take it with a grain of salt. And Anthony Albanese's statements on it were hardly strong. You know, he was largely avoiding the issue and giving a very short answer. He certainly wouldn't explain, if he did oppose it, why exactly he would oppose it, because I suspect that deep down, and perhaps if we were to go into all of his previous comments, maybe at branch meetings and other places, you know, you wouldn't put it past him to have supported it. Now, I don't know that for sure. Maybe that's not the case, but he certainly didn't come out in a strong way and condemn it. And the fact that some on his left are pushing for it and are endorsing it, like Alicia Payne. The fact that his likely Greens partners, if he were in government, are pushing it. I mean, the Greens federal platform actually talks about the use, possession and non-commercial sale of drugs being decriminalised. Now, I can only assume that means sort of low-level drug dealing being completely decriminalised. And Peter, the problem with this, as Reece Kershaw points out, is it absolutely empowers organised crime. And you know, we see in other countries in Europe where we've seen this kind of thing happen, narco-tourism happening, where people are crossing borders in order to use drugs, and you see it's an absolute magnet for organised crime, and that's what I fear would happen in Canberra, but I think the problems go well beyond Canberra and they could spread nationally.
Well, Minister Seselja, all credit to you for exposing this and keeping the pressure up on what is a coordinated push. This is not outliers, as I said. Thank you for your time. And of course, you know what happens on the left. They want one state or territory to fall in line with a radical social agenda, and they'll use that as template legislation. We've seen it on many other issues, and they'll use it as template legislation across the country.